In the deep halls of the alien court, the lights were cold and silver, shining down on walls made of black stone. Every sound echoed, and every shadow felt alive. A group of tall alien nobles gathered in a circle, their eyes glowing, their voices sharp like blades. They were here to celebrate victory after a great war. Their commander had crushed another enemy, and now he waited for his reward. From the back of the hall, two guards dragged a young human girl, her wrists locked in chains, her eyes wide with fear, her clothes torn. She stumbled as the aliens laughed. "She is yours, Commander," one noble said, his voice filled with cruel amusement. "A prize, a gift, a pleasure animal for your service." The aliens clapped their long hands. Their laughter filled the chamber. To them she was nothing, not even a person, just an object to be given away. The girl stood silent, her body shaking, her lips pressed tight. She did not cry, she did not speak. She had learned long ago that tears only made the aliens laugh harder. The commander stepped forward, his armor shining, his face hidden behind a mask of bone. He looked at the girl with cold eyes. He did not ask her name, because in this empire, humans were not given names. They were numbered, branded, and used. Her number was 721, the mark burned into her arm, the only identity she was allowed. The hall grew louder as the aliens drank and feasted, their words mocking her, calling her an animal, a toy, a prize, their cruelty endless. Inside, the girl's mind burned with shame and fear. She remembered a world she could no longer touch, a sky with blue clouds, voices of family she had lost. But the memories were fading. Every day they slipped away, and she was left only with silence. The commander ordered the guards to take her to his chambers. She walked through dark halls, torches burning with green fire. The stones saw eld of smoke and iron. Every corner filled her with dread. In his private room, she was locked in a cage of crystal bars, like a bird caught for display. The commander said nothing more, only stared for a moment before leaving her in silence. Hours passed. The girl pressed her head against the cold bars, her stomach empty, her throat dry. She closed her eyes and wished for something impossible. Someone who would see her not as a number, not as an animal, but as a human. But wishes were dangerous here. Hope was dangerous, and she knew it. Outside, the alien court celebrated through the night, their laughter rolling through the corridors. Every cheer a reminder that her freedom was gone. Yet in the corner of the room, unseen by the commander, another figure watched. A human soldier in alien armor, his face hidden but his eyes full of fire. He had seen her when she was dragged into the hall, and he had not forgotten. He was one of them now, trained by the Empire, forced to fight in their wars. But inside he had never surrendered, he had never stopped being human. And now, as he looked at the girl trapped like an animal, something inside him moved. The girl sat alone, nameless, broken, yet deep inside. Her heart still beat, soft and steady, waiting for the moment someone would whisper the word she longed for most. A name. The story of the girl with no name had only begun. The grand feast in the alien palace had ended. The floor was littered with silver cups and broken bones. Strange music still echoed from the walls, but the nobles had gone to their chambers. In the silence, a young soldier walked through the corridors, his armor heavy, his steps steady. The torches painted his shadow long across the stone. His name was not spoken by the aliens. To them, he was just the human fighter, a weapon trained to kill. He had been taken when he was a boy, torn from his home, his memories of Earth buried under years of war and blood. The Empire had raised him like a beast of iron, but no chain could break the fire inside his soul. Tonight, his heart was restless, for he had seen her, the girl, the one they called a pleasure animal, dragged into the hall like a prize. He had seen the mark on her arm, the number burned into her skin, and his blood boiled. He walked past alien guards, their heads tall and their eyes glowing yellow. They sneered at him, but did not stop him. He was valuable, a killer shaped by their cruelty. Yet deep down, he hated them. Every step he took in their halls was heavy with rage. In the commander's chamber, the girl sat in the crystal cage, her knees pulled close, her eyes staring at the floor. She looked small, fragile, but something about her silence struck him like a blade. The soldier stood in the doorway for a long moment, his chest tight, his mind at war. He knew the punishment if he dared to show kindness. Humans were not allowed to care for each other. The Empire feared love more than rebellion. But finally, he stepped closer, his voice low, his words careful. "Do you remember your name?" he asked. The girl lifted her head slowly, her lips parted, but no sound came. It had been so long since anyone had asked her that question. She shook her head, tears filling her eyes but not falling. The soldier looked around, making sure no alien eyes were watching. Then he knelt beside the cage. "Then I will give you one," he whispered, his heart pounding. You are not 721. You are not an animal. Your name is Lyra. The girl's breath caught in her chest. A sound escaped her lips, half sob, half laugh. The first sound of hope she had made in years. Lyra, the name was simple, but it was light. It was fire. It was life. For the first time, she felt human. Solo. Gain. The soldier pressed his hand against the crystal bars. Do not forget it, he said. Names are power, and no one can take this one from you. Her fingers touched the cold surface, reaching toward him, though they could not meet. For the first time, her eyes held strength, not just fear, but outside the chamber, footsteps echoed. The soldier quickly pulled back, his face hard, his body straight. An alien guard appeared, sneering. What are you doing here, human fighter? The soldier's voice was flat, trained to lie. Guarding, nothing more, he replied, his hand on the hilt of his blade. The guard narrowed his eyes but moved on. The soldier waited until the sound of boots faded. Then he looked back at Lyra, his eyes fierce. Stay alive, he whispered. We will find a way out. Her heart pounded at those words. Escape had been only a dream, but now it was a promise. That night, she repeated the name he had given her over and over in her mind. Lyra, 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 until it sank into her soul, until she believed it was hers. Meanwhile, the soldier walked back to his barracks, his thoughts heavy. He had broken the Empire's law. He had given a slave a name. He had lit a spark, and sparks, he knew, could start a fire. The palace was quiet, but beneath the silence, a storm was forming. Two humans, broken and chained, had found each other, and their story was only beginning. The Empire thought it had tamed him, thought it had crushed her, but they had made a mistake. They had put them in the same place, and now, in the shadows, rebellion had a heartbeat. The night inside the alien palace was never truly silent. Deep in the halls, green torches burned without smoke, shadows stretched like claws on the walls, and strange whispers carried through the stone. Lyra sat in her crystal cage, her knees pulled close, the cold floor beneath her, her eyes fixed on the faint glow of the torches. She had repeated her new name 100 times. Lyra, each time it grew stronger in her heart. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever given her anything except chains and pain. But now she had a name, a small piece of light in a sea of darkness. Far away in the barracks, the human soldier lay awake, his armor set aside, his eyes staring at the ceiling. He thought of her face, the shock when he whispered the name, the tears that almost fell. He knew the risk. He knew if the aliens discovered the truth, they would kill them both. Yet he could not stay away. Something inside pulled him back to her, something stronger than fear. When the palace fell quiet, when the alien guards grew drunk and heavy with sleep, he rose, silent as a shadow. He walked through the corridors, every step a blade of danger. At last, he reached the commander's chamber. The crystal cage shimmered in the torchlight, and there she was, Lyra, awake, her eyes bright despite the chains. He whispered her name, the sound soft but strong. She lifted her head, her lips curved into the smallest smile, a fragile smile, but real. You came back, she whispered, her voice shaking from disuse. I said I would, he replied, his eyes scanning the hall to make sure they were alone. I told you to stay alive. He crouched beside the cage, his hand resting against the cold bars. Listen to me, Lyra, he said. You are not an animal. You are human, and one day we will leave this place. Her eyes widened, her breath caught. Leave? She asked, the word trembling. Shh. No one leaves. No one escapes. He leaned closer, his voice like steel. They want you to believe that. But I have seen their weaknesses. I have fought their battles. I know how they bleed. They are not gods. They can be broken. For the first time in years, hope flickered in her chest, a dangerous, burning hope. But as their whispers filled the chamber, a shadow passed the doorway. The soldier froze, pulling back, his hand tightening on the hilt of his blade. The sound of boots echoed, slow and heavy. The alien commander returned, his armor clinking, his face hidden behind the mask of bone, his glowing eyes scanning the room. The soldier bowed low, his voice calm. Commander, I came to report that the guards at the west gate are careless. They drink too much. They leave their posts. The commander grunted, his gaze moving past him to the cage, to Lyra. The prize looks restless, he said coldly. I will break her spirit soon. Lyra lowered her head quickly, hiding her eyes, her hands trembling, but in her heart, her new name held her together. She repeated it silently. Lyra, Lyra, Lyra. The commander turned back to the soldier. Go, he ordered. Tomorrow you march to the training pits. I want my fighters sharp. The soldier bowed again, his body rigid, his teeth clenched behind closed lips. He wanted to strike, to kill, but he knew the time was not yet. When the commander finally left, the soldier gave Lyra one last glance, his eyes speaking the words he could not say. Hold on. That night, Lyra pressed her forehead against the bars. She whispered her name again and again, her voice soft but steady. She was not 721. She was not an animal. She was Lyra. And in the dark, she clung to the promise he had made: escape, freedom, a future beyond the chains. The Empire thought she was broken, but with one word, one name, a fire had been lit inside her soul. And fires, no matter how small, can grow. Days turned into weeks inside the alien palace, yet something small and dangerous had begun to grow. Lyra, once silent and broken, now whispered her name to herself each morning. Every time she spoke it, she felt stronger. She felt alive. The human soldier visited her whenever he could, always in secret, always at night when the guards were drunk or asleep. He brought scraps of food stolen from the feast halls, a piece of bread, a slice of fruit, sometimes just water. But to her, it was more precious than gold, more than food. He gave her words. He taught her how to speak again, slow and careful. He reminded her of human songs, of laughter, of courage. Each word was like a seed planted deep inside her. Lyra listened, she repeated, she learned, and with each lesson her spirit rose. One night, as they spoke in whispers, he told her of battles he had fought for the aliens, how he had seen their soldiers fall, how he had learned their weakness. They think we are less, he said, his eyes sharp, but they fear us more than they admit. She looked at him with wide eyes. Fear us? She asked, her voice trembling but curious. Yes, he answered, because even when they chain us, we find ways to resist. Even when they strip away our names, we create new ones. Even when they crush us, we rise again. Her heart pounded at his words, and for the first time she imagined herself not as prey, but as something stronger. But the Empire was not blind. The aliens had ruled for centuries, and they had seen rebellions before. One guard, a cruel creature with gray skin and sharp teeth, noticed the change in her eyes. He saw the way she no longer stared at the floor, the way her silence was not empty, but waiting. He reported to the commander, "The prize is not as broken as she should be. Her spirit must be crushed again." The commander laughed, his voice like iron grinding again. "Stone, then we will break her tomorrow." That night, the soldier hurried to her cage, his face pale, his voice urgent. "Lyra, listen, they suspect, they want to destroy the fire inside you. Tomorrow will be dangerous." Her hands shook, her breath caught, but she whispered, "I am not afraid, not anymore." He pressed his hand against the crystal bars. "You must be careful, but remember this, no matter what they do, hold on to your name. It is your shield, your strength." Tears filled her eyes, but they did not fall. Instead, she nodded, her voice steady. "I am Lyra." The soldier's chest tightened with pride and fear. He had planted a seed, but he knew seeds only grow in struggle. The next day, the commander called for her. The guards dragged her into the hall once more. The nobles gathered, their laughter sharp, their eyes hungry for cruelty. They mocked her. They called her an animal. They tried to strip her of dignity, but this time she did not collapse. She stood taller, her lips pressed tight, her silence no longer weak but defiant. The commander raised his hand, striking her across the face. The sound echoed, yet she did not cry. She whispered softly, almost too soft to hear, "Lyra." The soldier, standing at the edge of the hall among the guards, heard it. His heart blazed with fire. The nobles shouted for harsher punishment. They demanded she be broken. But the commander hesitated, his glowing eyes narrowing. He sensed something dangerous, something he could not explain. That night, when she was thrown back into her cage, bruised but unbroken, the soldier came again, his voice filled with urgency. "You are stronger than they know, but now we must act. We cannot wait much longer. They will not stop until they destroy you." Her voice was faint but firm. "Then we must escape." For the first time, she spoke the word without fear. "Escape." The soldier nodded, his jaw set. "Yes, but we must plan carefully. One mistake and we both die." They leaned close, whispering through the bars, their voices weaving the start of a plan. The shadows around them thick, the danger near. Yet in that darkness, rebellion was taking root. The Empire had given her as a reward, a prize, a slave. But with each whispered word, with each secret touch of hope, they had created something far more dangerous. They had created a spark, and sparks grow into flames. The palace of the alien empire was vast and cruel. Its towers rose like fangs, its gates guarded by beasts with iron claws. Escape was said to be impossible, but in the dark of night, inside the crystal cage, two humans whispered of freedom. The soldier leaned close, his eyes burning, his voice low. "There will be a feast tomorrow. The nobles will gather, their guard will weaken. That is when we move." Lyra listened, her heart pounding. She could hardly believe the words, yet the fire inside her told her it was possible. "How?" she asked, her hands gripping the cold bars, her voice shaking but not with fear. With hope, he explained each step, every detail. He had studied the palace for years. He knew when the guards changed shifts, when the lights dimmed, when the commander grew drunk. "I will take down the guard outside your chamber," he whispered. "Then I will open the cage. We run through the west corridor. There is a passage that leads to the outer wall." Her eyes widened. "And after that?" His voice hardened. "After that, we fight. We run until we cannot. But we do not stop, no matter what stands in our way." Lyra's breath shook, but she nodded. "I will not stop." For the first time since her capture, she felt like more than a prisoner. She felt like a warrior. The next day, the palace swelled with noise. Golden banners hung from the walls. Drums echoed through the halls. The nobles arrived dressed in blood-red robes. The commander stood at the center. His voice thunderous, his laughter cruel, but the soldier's mind was elsewhere. He waited, every heartbeat heavy, every moment sharp. He was a weapon trained by the Empire, but tonight he would use that training against them. Night fell. The feast began. Alien wine spilled across silver tables. The nobles grew loud, their laughter shaking the stone. The guards at the doors grew careless. Some drank, some slipped into corners to rest. In the chamber, Lyra waited, her body tense, her lips whispering her name like a shield. "Lyra, Lyra, Lyra," she repeated it, readying herself. Then the sound came, quiet but strong, the soldier at her door, the clash of steel, the soft thud of a falling guard. Silence, then his face in the doorway. "It is time," he whispered, unlocking the cage. The crystal bars slid open with a hiss. Lyra stepped out, her legs trembling but firm. She was free from the cage, though chains still hung from her wrists. The soldier handed her a blade, small but sharp. Her fingers wrapped around it tightly. The cold steel felt strange, yet it gave her strength. They moved quickly, shadows slipping through corridors, the sound of music and laughter covering their steps. But every corner was danger, every hallway a trap. As they neared the west corridor, voices rose, guards approaching. The soldier pressed her against the wall, their breath held. Two armored creatures passed, their heads turning, their eyes glowing, but they did not see. When the hall was clear, they ran, their steps silent, their hearts loud. But then, a horn sounded in the distance, deep and harsh. The soldier froze, his face grim. "They know something," he whispered. "The alarms are early." Lyra's chest tightened, fear clawed at her, but she gripped the blade harder. "We cannot stop," she whispered back. "We run." The soldier looked at her, his eyes fierce, and nodded. They dashed through the corridor, torches flashing past, their chains clinking, their shadows racing ahead. The sound of boots thundered behind them. The guards had awakened. At the end of the hall, they reached the passage, a narrow stair twisting downward. The air smelled of dust and stone. "Go!" the soldier urged, pushing her forward. They rushed down, their steps echoing, their breath sharp, the walls closing in around them. Behind, shouts rose, weapons clashed, the chase had begun. At the base of the stair, a door of iron stood, locked with alien symbols glowing faint blue. The soldier drew his blade, slashing at the lock. Sparks flew, the metal groaned. Lyra stood guard, her hands shaking but steady, as shadows appeared in the stair, glowing eyes staring down at them. "Faster," she whispered, her voice tight. With a final strike, the lock shattered. The door creaked open. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the scent of freedom. They burst through, stepping into the outer yard, but freedom was not theirs yet. Ahead rose the towering wall of the palace, jagged and black, lit by the glow of alien torches. And at the top of the wall, more guards waited, bows raised, eyes burning. Lyra's heart pounded. The soldier raised his blade, and together they ran into the storm. The escape had begun, and the Empire would not let them go easily. The night outside the alien palace burned with chaos. Horns echoed across the dark sky, torches blazed on the high walls, and the sound of boots thundered through the courtyards. Lyra and the soldier ran across the open yard, the cold air cutting against their skin. Arrows hissed through the night, striking the ground around them, sparks bursting where steel met stone. "Faster," the soldier urged, his hand tight on her arm, pulling her forward, his eyes sharp, his breath harsh. Ahead the great wall loomed, black and jagged. Stretching higher than any tree, freedom was on the other side, but between them and the wall stood a line of alien guards, their armor glowing faint with cruel light. The soldier raised his blade, his voice low but firm. "Stay behind me." But Lyra shook her head, her fingers clutching the small blade he had given her, her voice steady. "No, I fight too." He looked at her for a heartbeat, seeing not the broken girl in the cage, but the fire in her eyes. Then he nodded. "Then fight." The guards rushed forward, their weapons gleaming, their voices hissing like serpents. The first swung a spear, the soldier blocked with his blade. The clash rang like thunder. He spun, cutting the guard down. Another lunged at Lyra. She froze for a moment, fear gripping her. But then she remembered her name. She remembered his words. She thrust the blade forward, clumsy but desperate, striking the creature's arm. It roared in pain, stumbling back. Her chest heaved, her hands shook, but she did not drop the blade. She had drawn blood. She had fought. She was no longer prey. The soldier fought with fury, every strike fast and sharp. Years of forced training now turned against his masters. He cut through one, then another, his armor dented, his body bleeding, but he did not fall. Lyra stayed close, watching, learning, striking when she could. Each moment her fear turned more into fire. At last the yard was scattered with fallen guards. The soldier stood panting, his blade dripping. Lyra beside him, her eyes wide with shock and pride, but the wall still stood, towering, and more horns sounded, more guards coming. This way, the soldier pointed to a cart near the wall, filled with barrels of alien wine. We climb. Together they pushed the cart, their muscles burning, the wheels grinding against stone, the sound echoing, arrows rained from above. One struck the ground beside Elle. Ira, splintering, another scraped her arm, blood streaking, but she did not stop. At last, the cart reached the wall. The soldier climbed first, pulling himself onto the barrels, then reaching down for her hand. Come, he urged. She climbed, her chains clinking, her arms trembling, but his grip pulled her higher, until at last they stood on the top of the cart, the wall rising just above. He leapt, catching the edge, hauling himself up, his muscles straining. Then he reached down. Lyra, take my hand. She jumped, her fingers brushing his, her body slipping. But he caught her wrist, pulling with all his strength, her chains rattling, until finally she rolled onto the wall beside him. For a moment they lay side by side, breathless, staring at the stars beyond. But the moment did not last. At the far end of the wall, the alien commander appeared, his mask of bone glowing, his blade drawn, his eyes burning. You think you can escape me? His voice thundered, echoing across the stones. You are mine, both of you. The soldier pushed Lyra behind him, his blade rising, his voice firm. No, we are not yours. The commander charged, his strikes heavy, his blade smashing against the soldiers. Sparks flew with each clash, the force driving him back step by step. Lyra watched, her heart racing, the memory of chains still burning her skin, the sound of laughter from the nobles still ringing in her ears, and something inside her snapped. She grabbed a fallen spear from the wall, her hands shaking but strong. She shouted with all her breath, I am not an animal, and thrust the spear toward the commander. The strike caught him off guard, the tip cutting through his armor. He roared in pain, stumbling. The soldier seized the chance, driving his blade into the commander's side. The alien howled, collapsing onto the stones, his mask cracking, his blood dark. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by their harsh breaths. The commander lay broken. The horns still blared, the guards still shouted, but Lyra and the soldier stood tall, side by side, alive. Down, he said quickly, pointing to the far side of the wall. We climb down and run, do not look back. She nodded, her chest tight, her body shaking, but her voice firm. We run. Together, they climbed down the wall, the night air cold against their wounds, the ground below dark and open. Beyond it, the unknown, but also freedom. Behind them, the palace burned with fire and screams. Before them, the stars stretched endless. They ran into the dark, the chains still heavy, the wounds still raw. But with every step, the weight grew lighter, because for the first time they were not slaves, they were not prey, they were free. The night stretched wide and endless as Lyra and the soldier ran from the palace, their feet pounding the earth, their lungs burning. Behind them the horns screamed, the walls glowed with fire, the empire's fury rising. Every step was heavy, but neither stopped. The forest loomed ahead, black and deep, the trees bending like ancient guardians. The soldier pulled Lyra into the shadows, their bodies pressing against the rough bark, their breath hidden in silence. For a moment, only the wind spoke, carrying the smell of smoke and iron, the sound of the alien palace fading into the distance. We are free, Lyra whispered, her voice trembling but strong, the word tasting strange and sweet. The soldier looked at her, his chest rising and falling, his eyes fierce. Not yet. The Empire will not stop. They will hunt us, but we will not go back. They pushed deeper into the forest, the ground soft with moss, the stars peeking through the branches above. Lyra's legs ached, her wrists raw from chains, but she pressed forward, every step carrying her further from the cage. At dawn, the forest opened to a river, wide and fast, its surface shy. Ning with morning light, Lyra stared at it, fear and wonder mixing. How will we cross? She asked. The soldier scanned the banks, his eyes sharp. We find a way. The water will hide our tracks. They cannot follow easily. Together they moved along the edge until they found fallen logs, heavy and thick. They dragged them into the water, binding them with torn strips of cloth, shaping a small raft. It was clumsy, unsteady, but it floated. The soldier helped Lyra onto it, then climbed himself, pushing them into the current. The river carried them, the cold spray on their faces, the roar of water drowning the sounds of pursuit. Lyra held the edge tightly, her eyes wide. What if it breaks? He placed a hand on hers, steady. Then we swim, but we do not stop. Hours passed, the river winding through valleys and cliffs, and slowly the palace smoke vanished from the sky. At last they reached the far bank, crawling onto the earth, soaked and trembling, but alive. Lyra fell to her knees, pressing her hands into the dirt, feeling it, smelling it. It was not the cold stone of the cage, not the polished floors of the alien halls. It was wild and free. She whispered her name into the ground. Lyra! The soldier knelt beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder, his voice low. Remember this moment. They tried to erase you, but you are here. You are alive. You are Lyra. She turned to him, tears in her eyes, but they were not of sorrow. They were of strength. And you, she said softly, what is your name? He froze, the question striking deep. He had not spoken his true name in years. The Empire had stripped it from him, called him only fighter, slave, beast. But now, in the silence of the forest, in the presence of someone who believed in him, he whispered it, broken at first, then firm. Daniel. Lyra smiled, the sound of it like light. Daniel, she repeated, and for the first time he felt human again. They sat together, two names, two souls, no longer. Our numbers, no longer tools but people. Yet danger still followed. The Empire's shadow stretched long. The soldier knew it. The hunt would not stop. But now they had more than fear. They had names. They had each other. As night fell once more, they built a small fire, its glow soft against the trees. Lyra sat close, the warmth touching her face. She spoke slowly, as if testing the strength of her new self. They gave me as a reward. They called me an animal, but I am not. I am Lyra, and I will never be broken again. Daniel looked at her, pride burning in his chest. And they thought they owned me. They thought I was their weapon, but I am not. I am Daniel, and I fight for us. The flames danced. The stars above seemed brighter. The forest silent around them. The Empire would come. Battles still waited. The future was uncertain. But in that moment, they were free. Two humans, carrying scars, carrying pain, but also carrying something the Empire could never take. A name. And names are more powerful than chains.